You said I have to be nice to Alpine. I absolutely don't have to be nice to Alpine. Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast with Sean and Coops. Joining us this evening for our review of the teams, the constructors for 2025. We have a full house today, which is fantastic. Coops, we've got some a new face with us this evening. Excited to hear some new opinions.
Yeah, but not a different accent because she's all taken over.
Yes, we absolutely are. We are taking over. So I'll come to you first. Mairead, welcome to the podcast. Mairead, of course, is our social media editor and manager. So you've probably seen her name around our socials a lot, but welcome first time on the podcast.
Thanks a million, Sean. Great to be on. Yeah, you've probably seen me on F1 threads the past couple of weeks is where I've been kind of hopping on. But yeah, delighted to be here and looking forward to reviewing the season.
It's going to be a good one. We also, of course, have James joining us back. Good evening.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy to be back. Looking forward to this. It's going to be good.
Yes, as am I. And Sock, I'm going to spoil, I think, who you might have put high up on your list because of that nice red hat. How are you?
I could be better. It's not going to be a pleasant evening for me, but I'm glad to be here, I think.
That was a missing last episode, though, that Ferrari hat inconspicuously.
Yes, it was conspicuously missing the last episode.
It's been missing for the last 3 episodes, I think.
Well, we are here to review. So what we have done as a bit of an intro to this is, like we did midway in the season, and like we did last season as well, we have got the entire Everything F1 team to rank the F1 constructors from 10th to 1st. In their own personal opinions. It was a blind ranking. They sent all the rankings into a shared document, and then we averaged it over the season. We combined it with the averages that we got from the first half of the season as well to make it completely fair, so it wasn't just all recency bias. For example, Carlos Sainz's results when we get to the drivers' rankings in the next episode was pretty awful for the first half of the season and considerably better for the second half. So we've kept it as fair as possible. But tonight, for this episode, we will be focusing on the constructors, ranking them from 10th to 1st. If you want to see our full ranking, how we kind of ranked everybody individually, this ranking system will be available on our website, everythingf1.com, with full text descriptions of why we've kind of given the rankings that we have, and the scores that we've given are all available over there. But what I'm going to do is get the first one out of the way because it was entirely unanimous. Of all of the rankings, all 10 teams and all 21 drivers, this is the only score that was entirely unanimous amongst the entire Everything F1 team. And that's Alpine, our 10th. We are putting Alpine smack bang at the bottom because Alpine suck. So I'm just going to get that one straight out of the way. They got an average score of 1. And like I said, it's 10 points for first, 1 point for 10th. They got an average score of 1, which means the entire team ranked them last, which is not surprising at all. They also finished last in the actual championship. So we're not surprised at all that that's how that shook out. I said I'd take this one because it's probably not a secret to anybody who's watched the show for a while. I'm not a fan of them, but apparently I might have to learn to be, because a little bit of breaking news to kind of break up this episode a little bit is that, of course, Helmut Marko has been sacked by Red Bull, who's retiring from Red Bull. And the story that's come out today as to why is because apparently he signed Alex Dunn to the Red Bull, to the VCARB team for 2026 without telling anybody. He didn't have permission to it. He didn't have permission. He didn't have the board's approval. I think Red Bull were a bit silly not to keep him on, but in fairness, they probably have a longer term contract with Lindblad. So he signed him with no approval whatsoever from Red Bull, which has cost Red Bull in the figure of high 6 figures to buy Alex back out of this contract, which is why Alex Dunn left the McLaren program earlier in this year with no explanation whatsoever, which is why apparently he's now being touted by Alpine to join their young driver program. I kind of hope he doesn't. He's got himself a seat in F2 for next year, probably thanks to a tasty payoff from Red Bull. Yeah, so Alpine, I'm going to continue to shit on you for now, but if you sign Alex Dunn for next year, I promise I'll be nicer.
Not
No.
nice, nicer.
Yeah, nicer. Oh, no.
Okay, so that's not an apology. It's
Not
just
forget-
that I will admit you exist in Formula One.
Yes.
And I may comment on how nice the blue is on the car, but I still don't really like you. Is that
Pretty much.
Is that the vibes we're going with?
I might occasionally stop mentioning Otmar Zafnauer and how badly the team is managed, or I won't make as many jokes about the fact that a Renault French manufacturer doesn't run with their own engines anymore. But that's for next year.
Otmar. I like Otmar.
Yeah,
staff now. Yeah.
that's
Who
for
could
next
have,
year's problem. Let's move on to who we
who
ranked.
could have thought that someone came in after him and made it worse? Okay, good.
He
It's a
probably would have thought
challenge.
so, but I certainly didn't. But there we go. That's Alpine. We've ranked them 10th and last. If I had to put a guess out, I'd say you all listening probably would as well. Let's move on then to 9th in the championship, which is Haas. Coops, we have scored them an average of 3.5 points out of 10 for the course of the whole season. They, of course, finished the championship in 8th on 79 points. How do you rank Haas this year? What do you make? Is ninth a fair position for them? They finished a bit higher in the championship, but it wasn't a bad year, but nothing quite as spectacular as some of their closest competitors.
Yeah, it was steady, which is like a team. It's the smallest team on the grid in terms of budget, size, and everything else. And I think this is the first season where they actually had someone who was running it not to massage his own ego. He was running it to actually make the team better, and Gene Haas seemed to like. Personally, I ranked him 7th. You really, my 9th is was pretty good, and we'll come to that one. But yeah, I quite liked him. They quietly got on with it. I still don't know. I'm not sold on Ocon as a driver. I'm not a big fan of him. Haven't really been a big fan of him, but I do like Ollie Bearman. And they've done everything. They done what they should have done this year. You know, they're slowly progressing. Their car's competitive enough. It's a really tight grid when you take away the top maybe 4 teams. When you talk Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, and on occasion Ferrari.
Williams.
You know, that kind of middle, even the bottom now, that's a really big mug that you're drinking out of. That just completely caught me off guard there.
It's a marathon ranking we're about to get through. I need some
Indeed.
power juice for it.
So yeah, there's not too much to say. The issue I have as well is, see, a lot of the season, when I was trying to think back of it, I can't remember a lot of things that happened with a lot of teams. It was like George, he just appeared in 3rd place a lot of the time. Don't know what he did up until that point. So it was all just, my rankings are based more on feel. I know we've got a kind of data person here who couldn't do it on feel. I just did it on what I felt in my own personal expectations. And I quite liked Haas. They done reasonably well. So.
And that's actually a good call out as well. Obviously, everyone on the team ranked things differently. Some did it based on vibes, some did it on personal opinion, some did it on data, some went with the championship ranking and thought that was the fairest way to do it. If they finished in 9th, they deserved to be 9th. All completely random. There was no consistency and nobody knew what anybody else's scores were. So this is why we're ranking it in this way. But yeah, Haas, solid year, really, really competitive midfield, entirely better year than last year, which was a bit of a joke for them. And I suppose the big highs we'll talk about in driver rankings was probably Ollie Bearman in Mexico, which if you want a bit of a feel good, go back and watch the celebrations for that. It was fantastic. Let's move on then to 8th position. We have ranked Aston Martin in 8th with an average of 3.7 out of 10 for the whole season. And again, this is everybody ranked 10th to 1st. Championship position, they did finish 7th with 89 points. Sock, come to you on this one. Aston Martin, would they have, been higher on this? Are they saved from being lower on this list by the fact that, Fernando Alonso exists?
Yes, and what you were going to ask me was, would they be higher if they didn't have Stroll? Yes.
Yeah, it works both ways.
I had Aston 9th for mostly that reason alone, is because you can't expect, like we've spoken about 2 number 1 drivers for a lot. We've also spoken about how Max is the only one dragging that Red Bull to any form of highs in the Constructors' Championship. Similar goes for Aston. They just don't have the mechanics to go with it. And it's going to be such a shame to see a newly built car being driven by Stroll. So, no, I don't think Stroll ever beat, I think he might have beat Alonso once. Otherwise, I think they've had a very nothing year. Like, there was no track that you would expect them to be fast at. There was nothing that you really expected out of them other than, where is Stroll going to crash out?
They were pretty open about the fact that they had not brought too many developments to this car, which is completely fair when your new car next year in a new era will be an Adrian Newey car. Why would you put any more resources than you have to into this year's car? So that's one side of it. But yeah, like Fernando Alonso outqualified Stroll 24-1, 24-0, a complete whitewash. And then in the sprints it was 5-1. I think Stroll topped him in one sprint session.
think there
Woo!
might have been one
Congratulations.
race
Daddy
as
spent all
well.
those billions for one sprint qualifying.
There might have been one race as well, where with the caveat that Alonso didn't DNF, that Stroll beat him on the track, but I could have that wrong. But I think I remember going through that when I was going through the drivers. But
He outscored him a couple of times, but again, a lot of them were retired. I mean, the first two races of the year, Stroll was sixth and then
yeah,
ninth, and Fernando retired for both those races.
yeah, exactly. No, so look, I can't see how you can rank a team high when they don't do any development and they keep Stroll in their seats. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than do better, Aston. Like, come on, if you're going to be touting around it and using 007 as a marketing ploy, at least be a little bit slicker in your drivers.
Yeah, well, here's hoping that the newly designed car at least gives Fernando something to battle with for next year.
They are never going to be
Cool.
serious when they have Stroll driving a car.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. You would hope that Adrian Newey, as the actual team principal, might have maybe a little bit more say next year. But it's too late to sack him off now, really, isn't it? And who are they going to replace him with? Because Drogovic is no better. But yeah, there we go. Alex Dunn's free. Just throw that one out there.
Is Drogovic not away over to Formula E?
Oh, he might be at this point, yeah, because he's floundered around as the reserve driver for so long because Lance won't leave. There we go. He might. I'll tout that he might just swan off to the Valkyrie at some point. He can't ignore that V12 for too much longer.
Yuki's free and it's a Honda engine.
That's like Yuki is technically free. Is he not the reserve driver?
No, he's the reserve and
I think he is official. Yeah, I
Red Bull.
think he's been named as the reserve driver. But yeah, if I was Yuki, I'd want to follow Honda to anywhere else. They're the reason he's in Formula One in the first place. Let's move on then to seventh, and we have put Kick, Sauber, Ferrari, Stake, whatever they're called, the orange team that Peter Sauber used to own, the green team, sorry, the Peter Sauber used to own. We put them seventh with an average of 4.8 points, just shy of average. Championship position, they obviously finished ninth on 70 points. But James, I think it's perfectly fair to say that our ranking is probably a little bit fairer to how the season has gone for Sauber than the championship standings would suggest.
Yeah, I think so. I think the way I ranked them was, I think the championship standing is obviously important, but I think more just about how interesting they were for me and how, the storylines around the teams. And I think that I actually had them sixth above a certain team, which I have a sneaking suspicion Coops was ranked ninth. But I think obviously the big story was the Hulkenberg podium. I think they also obviously made a lot of progress from last year, but pretty shocking last year, and they made it back into that midfield pack this year. So I feel they deserved a little bit better than their ninth place, and that midfield battle between sixth and ninth was particularly close anyway. And I think they made the right decision putting Bortoleto in the car. He developed quite nicely over the year. And that livery did really grow on me. So I think when I was looking around, around like the Haas and Aston Martins, I ranked them higher, and so did we, just because they were just more interesting. I think Haas had a decent season, but it really was Behrman in doing the business for them, and I think Sauber set them up to be as a nice place for them to go to beat Audi next year. So I think they deserve to be in and around in that mix. Just below average feels right for them, but of course that Hulkenberg podium in Britain was of course going to be the standout story for them, and maybe those two and that massive crash from Bortoleto in the sprint in Brazil. I enjoyed that as well.
I don't think he did.
No, but it was spectacular.
I don't think his fans did, but it certainly was. It was pretty spectacular, and that's two forgetting to close the DRS crashes that we had this year. It's one of those things where if I had a nickel, I'd have two nickels, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, kind of thing. The other, if you don't remember, it was Jack Doohan. So yeah, no, I exactly. We'll touch on him very, very briefly in the next episode. I think just below average is perfectly fair for Kick Sauber, Ferrari, whatever they're called, Kick, Stake, Ferrari,
Yeah.
Audi. They're Audi now. In the article version of this that I've written today on the drivers' rankings. All I've written was Hulkenberg got a podium. That's all you need to know about why we rank him where we rank him, and I think it's fair that we've ranked Sauber in a similar position. It is sad that we've lost Sauber, and if you didn't tear up a little bit looking at those pictures of Peter Sauber staring at the fireworks in Abu Dhabi, I don't think you've been a Formula One fan for long enough, I'm afraid, and you need to maybe, go back and watch some classic seasons to understand how important a name that is in Formula One, and we will miss that name.
Now, can I just put in, I want to be completely transparent. I ranked him 5th, and I can't remember why. And maybe
Hulkenberg podium. Hulkenberg podium. That's what you
the
have to say.
Hulkenberg podium, maybe Bortoletto was good.
Hmm.
I have them above Williams, and I don't know why. It's weird. I don't know
It's
what
that
I done
gut
there.
feel. It's that gut feel.
Yeah,
Keith,
I just looking when you mentioned me saying I ranked him 9th, and I laughed, and then I looked at him, what did I rank? And I'm like, oh dear. So
Well,
okay, yeah.
James ranked them 6th, so not too far off.
bad.
There you go. Now, in hindsight, probably don't deserve to be above Williams in my ranking. But again, this is probably the negative about doing it on fields.
Yeah, but Alex Albon's never had a podium. Carlos Sainz has had plenty. Nico Hulkenberg had never had one. So, you have to take the wins. Moving on then, and I will conspicuously avoid stock on this one. 6th, we have ranked Ferrari. You can turn your hat backwards if you want for this one. Mairead, I'll bring you into the show for this one. We have ranked Ferrari 6th with an average of 5.2 out of 10 for the whole season, so just above average. Now, for reference, okay, we obviously, like I said, we did this earlier on in the season as well for the kind of halfway point. So we've ranked them with 5.2 out of 10 points for the whole season, so just above average. But really interestingly, and maybe this showed the tale of two halves, at the midway point, at the summer break, our ranking for the first half of the season had them on 7.3. So comfortably the third best team. That is a stunning fall off, unfortunately. And it followed into the championship positions as well. They finished 4th on 398 points, outscored on an individual level by the top 3 drivers individually. So yeah, Mairead, talk to us about Ferrari. See, as tale of two drivers as well, because Charles Leclerc continues to just be spectacular.
Absolutely. Sorry, Socks, but it's not going to be the best review, I'm afraid, for you. It's hard to think that we were thinking of them being in second position. Like they were fighting for the constructors last year, and the cars
14
haven't really
points they
changed.
lost it by.
Yep, and they're in 4th. And let's be honest, barely in 4th at some stages, where you'd be wondering. I had them ranked, to be honest, at 9th because I thought they were just diabolical this year, being completely honest with you. One good thing, they did have the fastest pit stops, so at least we've improved in the pit stops. But overall, poor.
You need that when you're fighting in the midfield.
You do.
Sorry.
Can I also step in? I had them 9th too.
Yeah, so
That's what I meant. I knew you had them in 9th.
So I had Ferrari in 9th for the second half of the season as well. But for the first half of the season, I had them in 5th. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what mine was, but it wouldn't be 9th.
Listen, all I'm going to say here is that Ferrari had less strategy fuck-ups than McLaren this season. Just saying.
I mean, the whole strategy for the year was a fuck up. They decided to change their whole car, and
that was the engineering. It wasn't strategy. That's the engineering. The pit stops went well. The strategy.
You win and lose together.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton would not say the strategy went well this year. Did you hear him on the cool down lap or during the race? Of like
when they didn't reply to him.
Yeah, he said this time you don't reply, but then during the race he said, "Will you stop confirming?" And they're like, "Okay, confirmed." And he got really thick at them for just answering with affirmative answers all the time. He is completely done, and we said it last week. I think Riccardo Adame needs to maybe move aside a little bit. It's harsh on him. He's very experienced, but it's just not working with Lewis Hamilton. And at the end of the day, Lewis Hamilton is the 7-time champion. He should get whatever the hell he wants. Mairead, can you expect any more from Ferrari for next year? Hard to say, obviously, with the new cars, but
I hope
can't get
so
much worse,
for
can
Lewis
it?
Hamilton, for Lewis Hamilton's sake itself, I hope so. For Charles Leclerc, I don't know how he has stuck it out for so long, being completely honest. It's been a rough one, especially the last couple of races. Poor Charles was spinning around. Lewis was spinning around at some stage. The car was just uncontrollable at times, and I hope it gets better for them. I really do, because to be fair, they were very good last year to be fighting for the constructors, and then this year it's just hasn't gone their way. They changed it wrong. I don't know what they have to change. Maybe it's personnel. I'm not sure, but I hope for everyone's sake that Ferrari do it better next year, because everyone is deep down a Ferrari fan, I suppose. But I really hope they do better next year.
James is shaking his head.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Deep down.
One or two constructors champions and one world drivers, and everybody forgets how bad that McLaren was. You know what I mean? Like we were all saying
you
this.
don't
I-
forget.
I-
It's
oh,
like
we-
how
we-
bad
forget.
it was.
It's actually-
no.
Been
You're
through
only
the
as
pain.
good as your last result. Do you know what
That's
I mean?
actually something I was just going to say on the Ferrari versus McLaren there. Like Charles Leclerc might be looking at Lando Norris going, he stuck it out when they were last and second last in Bahrain. And yeah, McLaren have gone up and down, but the fact is they've kept going up on the net. Ferrari go up and down like the feckin' tide. There's
they're always-
absolutely
They're like sorry to any Arsenal fans out there, but they're like Arsenal. They're always thereabouts, but just never ever do it.
I'll remind you of that if they finish fourth again next season. How like Arsenal they really are.
Well, if Arsenal win this year and they get fourth next year again, then we're going to have to find a different team.
Yeah, I might make a point of saving that clip. Let's move on then and put Sock out of his misery and move on from Ferrari until we get to our driver rankings tomorrow. We can put him back into his misery. Fifth Coops, we have Racing Bulls, an average of 5.4 out of 10 points for the season. Smack bang in the middle. The championship position kind of reflects that as well. They finished sixth on 92 points. Thoughts on Racing Bulls? They are the average team of Formula One, really, aren't they? They're the perennial midfielders.
They are. I had them fourth personally, which is about, where you said. And I think for me, the main reason they're fourth is Isaac Hadjar. Other than Australia. So yes, I liked. I don't like the name because I think it's stupid. I like the livery of the car's really nice.
That Vegas one was particularly lovely.
Yeah, and Isaac Hadjar's just a really good driver, and VCAR have designed a car that Red Bull should have, which is just a very stable, good car that any driver could step into and do really well. I mean, Max Verstappen in a car like that would do what he does already and have someone with him, maybe a place or two behind, and that's kind of what he needed. So yeah, you can't, and I'm struggling to think of any real major screw-ups that they did over the year. Maybe it's because they're further down the grid, we don't really focus on them, but I don't remember them doing anything majorly wrong over the course of the year. So,
But no, neither do I.
It looks like their worst.
Their worst weekend by a country mile was Silverstone. They had a double retirement. But other than that, there was very few races in the grand scheme of things with a competitive midfield that they weren't in or very close to the points. So yeah, a very, very decent season for them. And I think sixth in the championship and fifth in our rankings fits pretty perfect. Like I said, 5.4 out of 10, just above average, but more above average than Ferrari. Fourth place, Sock, we have ranked Williams with an average of 6.6 out of 10 for the season. They obviously finished the championship in fifth, which they locked up in Qatar with the podium for Carlos Sainz, if I'm not wrong. They finished fifth on 137 points. Bit of a tale of two halves for their two drivers, really, for Williams, but overall, a good first proper test for the James Vowles project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I have Williams third in mind because I suppose taking into consideration getting Carlos Sainz into their car is a masterstroke and fair play to them for pulling that off. And James obviously did the hard yards in doing that. But yeah, they had a great season. Like they were just solid. Definitely best of the rest of Formula 2, really, like, or Formula B or whatever you want to call them. But like they just, yeah, they showed up, whether it was one, they didn't necessarily get both drivers on song each weekend, which is a bit of a shame. Had they been able to, like, especially at the start of the season, look, obviously you've Sainz coming into a new engine, new car, and see how he gets it. He had to kind of find his way with that. Obviously, we saw his mistake in in Australia, kind of highlighting that. But his highs when he hit them were much higher than Albon's, obviously. But Albon was again really consistent in that car throughout the year. So they pulled off a blinder, in my opinion, for 2025. I'm excited to see what they can do now for going into 26. Obviously, notwithstanding how the engine is going to fare for them, obviously similar to McLaren, they won't really, not being a works car, and won't really know until they get their hands on it in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully they continue on this train. We actually see Williams back up competing at the top of the table again.
Mm. Yeah, I think any Formula One fan of any length of time can surely hope that that is the case. It's been far too long. This was their best season since 2017, if I'm not wrong. And again, bear in mind, 2017, they were still very much assisted by that overpowerful Mercedes engine. Like they got Lance Stroll on a podium in Baku by doing absolutely nothing other than being uncatchable in a straight line. And was that the year the Red Bulls hit each other? Might have been.
Yeah, I think it was.
Ricardo went up under
Ricardo,
Max.
Yeah,
Max's fault. Fantastic season from Williams. Bit of a tale of two halves. We get into that in driver rankings. Overall, fantastic. And as Carlos Sainz said, if Vowles had told him last year that he'd get 2 podiums with him in 2025, he'd have signed far sooner. It's great to see. And yeah, I think Sparkles needs to be the design language for the car for next year. Maybe they need to replace that Duracell battery with a unicorn horn, and just give the whole team the power of Sparkles. If you don't get that one, where have you been for the past 4 months? Look that one up straight away. Let's move on then to third place. We have Red Bull. James, with an average of 6.9 out of 10 for the season. They obviously finished the championship in third as well. You're probably going to spoiled what our top 3 are. They kind of matches the championship order as well, but Red Bull in third. They finished third in the championship on 451 points, which means Max finished third in the championship on 451 points. And again, another tale of two halves and one driver. It's hard to be impressed by Red Bull. It's hard to be annoyed by Red Bull, because the fact of the matter is, like, Max didn't do that comeback all on his own. The team kind of got their act together a little bit to help him. McLaren helped him too. But it's a weird one trying to rank Red Bull this year, isn't it?
Yeah, because it really is. And I think I rank them third as well, and I think we've got a bit of a gap between them and second and first in that our points, the average points we gave them, and I think that's fair enough, because I think obviously you could always say for maybe both championships that if they had a proper second driver, or the car worked for the second driver, could they have won both championships? And I think that's a fair argument. But the reason I kept them third, I was debating putting them below Williams, because I think Williams just progressed so much better. They are probably the team of the season in that progression aspect of it. But I just think Max Verstappen is the Red Bull team, so he is. We just have to take that car as what Red Bull are. And I think the reason I kept them third because of that, but also because actually the turnaround they had, the car was obviously not working. The team was getting a bit broken with Christian Horner being at the helm. They swapped things around. I know Lauren Mekies can't be given all the credit for the turnaround, because I think those changes were probably in the pipeline anyway. But I think they stabilized, they fixed, and they recovered. So I think that's why I've left them third, because actually that is, I think their championship order is where they should be. They weren't the consistency or the having the 2 drivers as maybe the top 2 did. And actually, I think that just fits them perfectly, because Red Bull are Max Verstappen and Max Verstappen is Red Bull, and they finished third of the constructors. So I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's going to be a big storyline next year if Hadjar once again doesn't get on the pace as that in that second Red Bull. Then this could really be an issue for them, because what do you do then? This is 5 or 6 drivers. It's already been an issue, but Hadjar's had a great season in Racing Bulls. He can't demote him, and then he'll probably do quite well in that car again. Like, there's something clearly wrong in that regard after that. So I think they're perfectly placed. I think if Williams would have been above them in our averages, I wouldn't have argued against that either, because I think that's just, I think you're right. It's hard to say they've done a really good job, and it's hard to hate them, because actually they've done a pretty good job, and they could have easily come away with a drivers' championship if the last race had gone a different way. So I think perfectly fine. But And I also think I know obviously money comes with the constructors, but I think again the drivers is what they really want. I think they've won enough of those constructors. They think they just want to try and get as many for Max as possible. So I think third place is perfect for them.
Yeah, it's even obviously we can kind of mire them for the way they treated Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
Who again, we'll have some comments about in the next episode. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't have been surprising to anyone who's watched Formula One for more than 20 minutes that Red Bull are a bit feckin' ruthless.
Yeah.
And Yuki
And
Tsunoda's had
do we think Lawson would have done any better in that car? Like
I don't think he
Tsunoda
would have
came
done
in
any
had quite a long
better,
time
but I don't
and
think
didn't do any what
yeah, I don't think he would have done
it.
any worse.
Yeah.
So it didn't really change the fortunes of that second car. I don't think it would have got them any closer to Mercedes realistically in the grand scheme of things.
I think they did Lawson a favor getting rid of him, put him back into the Racing Bulls. You know what I mean? Like,
couldn't
I
agree
think
more.
they were probably saying, "Look, just get Yuki in. Probably not going to keep him beyond this season anyway." So
Yeah, they
let's
wanted to
not.
they wanted to get rid of Yuki as soon as they knew that Honda were pulling out. Like that's why he's there. That's the only reason why he's there. And they saw the opportunity that if we stick him in here, if he's great, great, we get to swan him off with a nice goodbye and a bottle of champagne. And if he sucks, we get to swan him off with absolutely no care in the world. And make him fail over the defending Lando. Anyway, that's for the next discussion. Yeah, Red Bull third. Interesting season. It'll be interesting to see if Laurent Mekies kind of changes things and how Hajar gets on next year. I think there'll be plenty more discussions around Red Bull and how they do business. And of course, but with Helmut Marko now gone, woohoo! The birds are singing and the hills are alive with the sound of music in Austria again because that miserable old bastard is no longer part of this sport. I'd have maybe thanked him if he got Alex Dunn into the sport, but I hate him even more for costing Alex Dunn his McLaren drive. So, ugh. Anyway, Mercedes are number two. Shocking. Mercedes we have second. We have ranked them. As James said, it's quite a gap between third and second. We've given them 8.4 out of 10 as the average for the season. They obviously finished second in the championship, which they wrapped up in Abu Dhabi on 469 points. And Mairead, it's a good year. George Russell had an incredible habit of just appearing, like that meme from The Office where Angela pops up behind Dwight. Yeah, fuck. That's kind of what George Russell was like to the top three this year. But there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Toto Wolff is a happy man that his customer engine romped to back-to-back constructors and now the driver's title as well.
Yes, but I think it could have gone worse, if that makes sense, because they lost their star coming into this season. They've built that team around Lewis Hamilton. They took a chance on Kimi Antonelli, who I still think he came in a little bit too early, being completely honest. I think they should have taken Carlos Sainz. But it could have been worse, is where I would go with Mercedes. They've been solid. The ground effect cars, they just haven't gotten top of them. I think they're delighted to see the new regulations. But George Russell has had a very solid season overall, considering. I think he's had 2 wins and I think it's been 9 podiums overall. And he has really pulled them through. Kimi Antonelli then has had his slow kind of start to everything in general. But I think they've protected him as much as they could as a driver. But I think this season could have been so much worse. It could have just fallen apart losing Lewis. That was a big loss for them in general. And I think they've handled it okay and solid enough. And I think they'll be happy-ish where they're at. They won't be happy that they didn't win the constructors and McLaren have won it. But I would go down and say it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. They could have lost to essentially a one driver team in Red Bull, and I'd say they're probably happier that at least they can claim some level of success that their engine won the championship, not whatever's in the back of the Red Bull tomorrow. So yeah, it could have been worse. It's interesting. I'm keen to get into the driver analysis. I know I've teased it a lot. Subscribe wherever you're listening. That's coming next. Because there's obviously a lot of discussion around the two drivers. Spoiler right now, I rank George Russell very highly in mine. I think he's had an absolutely phenomenal season. But yeah, you're right. Like they lost their talisman this year. They had a year to prep for it. I don't think they prepped as well as they could have. I think Carlos Sainz was maybe the answer. Kimi struggled, but if a year of struggling results in 3 podiums, then it could have been a lot worse. As a total rookie who didn't even have a civilian driver's license until halfway through his first season as a Formula One driver.
We say that though, but I think in hindsight, it was probably a good year to get him in because it's the end of a regulation. All of the teams are quite similar. Like when you see at the end of a regulation, that all of the teams start to kind of catch up with each other. You really get a mark of the driver that Kimi could be. And then also it's the end of a regulation. It's kind of like, right, you can kind of put that one in the bin. We've got a new car. Let's kind of go with a clean slate. And you've got a young driver who should be able to just dust himself off, pick himself up, and hit the ground running now next season.
Yeah, perfectly fair point as well. And now he's fully embedded in that team and he's been able to help design the new car around him. Yep, very, very fair point. So, kudos to Toto Wolff. It's not the worst season. They've definitely had worse. And first year without Lewis Hamilton can't have been easy. But yeah, fair play to them. We've ranked them second, which is where they finished in the championship as well. Have a wild guess who's number one. And in fact, hang on.
Alpine.
Yeah, it's Alpine. Yeah, I've changed my background to orange there, if anybody caught that. Yes, McLaren were number one. A very nearly unanimous vote on the other side of things. We gave McLaren 9.6 out of 10, which means I think only one person didn't put them as...
He just couldn't bring himself. He couldn't
Ferrari first.
I put them down as well.
No, it's all right. Yeah,
hold on a second, right? I'm going to qualify this. It was me. I put them in. I put McLaren second, and for very valid reasons, actually. And then I actually do have Ferrari in sixth, so I'm equal with what the group has all said. So it's not just red tinted biases going on here. I put Mercedes first for the reasons that we spoke about now. George was solid. I think they had a solid year. They were always thereabouts most weekends. They did a really good call with Kimi. I'm not giving McLaren number one because of how they've fumbled and what
to be fair
with the two drivers. I have been consistent on this, and that is why
true.
I do not think, as a constructors, they are the best. Fair enough, you had the best.
To be perfectly fair, like I said, this was a combination.
Best.
This was a combination of the first half of the season results and the second half of the season results. The first half of the season average was a 10 out of 10. It was completely unanimous. And I think for the first half of the season, they hadn't quite gotten into the mold of, we might win the championship. Let's help Max. So yeah, I think it's completely fair to say if you're looking at the second half of the season or the season as a whole, that no, they didn't deserve it. And Saki made the point pretty pointedly in the last episode that, happy for Lando. Well done, Lando. Lando's deserve it, but Zach Brown doesn't deserve any. And especially if you listen to his radio call to Oscar, my God. Like, Americans are fucking tone deaf at the best of time, but that was really bad. Coops,
he channeled his best Trump. It was
he really
horrific.
did. It was pretty bad. Coops, sum up McLaren as a season for us.
Well, they've won the drivers and won the constructors, so it's perfect. I mean, there's all the other stuff that we can discuss, but that's how they're going to sell it. They want constructors, drivers. They got it. Now, I missed the Piastri radio call. Someone want to enlighten me?
Zach Brown basically
Zach was
just
very happy,
came, he was super happy. In fairness, he wasn't trying to be a dick. He was very, very happy, and he was trying to, in his mind, he was being supportive to Oscar. Thank you for the year. It was a great year. Don't be too sad. You've been amazing. It's just the way it came across. One, because he kept cutting off Oscar's actual race engineer while he was trying to console him a little bit, and then coming in with, he sounded like he'd already drank about 8 bottles of champagne. And he did sound like Donald Trump trying to say that everything is great while the world's on fire. So it wasn't malicious, it was just extremely tone deaf, is what the message was. Do you remember last week when I tried to share the screen and it didn't work? That's
can't hear?
kind of can't hear a word.
It's kind of
It's all right, I'll cut that out.
Together, pretty impressive. So we go away to a few wounds to let. We're very proud of you, Stronger. What a team player. We'll go next year. See you at the podium. Thanks, Zach. And we'll have everything.
yeah, it's the kind of
And he came in again. It's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not great. And yes, the second half, I think especially the final quarter of the season, Oscar faltered, the team faltered. Lando was very good, and then you look at Qatar and Abu Dhabi, and he wasn't perfect again. There seemed to be a bit of pressure coming in there, but at the end of the day, Coops, you're right. The history books will not remember that. Let's be honest. Like, other than absolute hardcores who were there at the time, does anybody even remember Spygate or 2007 or 2008? No, we don't. We remember what the championship result was.
Well, we
You
disqualified.
pulled it off the top of your tongue, so yes, we do remember.
We are the hardcores who do remember, but anybody just looking back at when was the last time McLaren won both championships? Oh, it was 2007. Oh, did anything controversial happen in 2007? Don't know. McLaren won both championships. That's how history remembers it.
But as a
Just what-
McLaren fan, you have to be a bit frustrated as how the year has gone strategy wise. Yes, they've built a brilliant car. This is nothing at all on engineers or the actual car itself, but strategy wise, there's been some interesting calls. It was more so that there was no decision made, I think, more than anything, that they just couldn't decide what they wanted to do. And I just think I couldn't put them at number one. I am a McLaren fan, open and honest about it. I just couldn't put them at number one because I just think that they just didn't handle it very well, and I was just frustrated half of the year because of it.
Vindicated.
Yeah.
Well, James, what's your thoughts on McLaren then this year?
Well, I think they won the constructors last year by 14, and then they won this year by 400. I think it's I know that there's been some issues, but I think this is a team for the first time who's actually had two drivers in the championship battle. They're not going to get it right the whole time, and I agree with you. I think did they not make decisions at times? Yeah, 100%. But they also absolutely destroyed the rest of the field without Max. But like Martin Brundle used to say, thank God for Max Verstappen, because otherwise this would have been an absolute bloodbath. And I think we look at Williams saying they went from ninth to fifth in the championship, and they got way more points this year. McLaren just absolutely dominated. They should have won the championship by the earliest it's ever been. And I know they obviously fumbled it a little bit towards the end, but they won this by Spain, to be honest. You know what I mean? I think they absolutely dominated the season. So that's for me. History will look back and say, well, they got 800 and something points. The other team got 400. And I think for me, that's just, you can't argue with that. I appreciate where you're coming from. I do 100%. I think they could have done it better. But if you could look at any team, you could say Mercedes could have done it better with Lewis and Rosberg back in the day, but it just got more explosive. I think that's why we look back on it nicely. So I just think they absolutely smashed it. So it's hard to not put them number one.
For my part, I think exactly the same. Yes, you can say Zach Brown is maybe, like, we all kind of liked him at first. He's maybe kind of shown a different side of him. I think from the day he shook Donald Trump's hand pretty openly, he's become a bit of an ass, both publicly and privately. And, fight me on that one. But, I still like Andrea Stella. I think the team are fantastic, and they have worked their absolute bollocks and other parts off for years to achieve this. And let's not forget, they did nearly throw it away last year because they didn't know what they were doing yet. They hadn't been a winning team in over a decade and a half. This year, from a constructor's point of view, they did know what they were doing, and they were completely untouchable. And again, bear in mind that, a couple of strategy calls went here and there. Ultimately, where they lost a lot of their points is that their own driver lost his skill. That's a very harsh way of putting it, but Oscar Piastri fell off. The team didn't take parts off his car. They just didn't. Lando's season has been phenomenal from consistency point of view. We talked about that, the amount of podiums he got all year. The team didn't achieve that for him. He achieved that with the best car, fair enough. Yes, the team made some dodgy calls. Yes, there's the Monza thing, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, post Baku, Oscar fell off a cliff. If Oscar had stayed there in and around where Lando was, one, he would be world champion. But two, McLaren probably would have broke the 1,000 point barrier that we thought midway through the season, when they were scoring 1-2 every other week, that they would do. And as it happens, they were only about 170 points off that, which is only 4 1-2 victories away from 1,000 points. Put that in context. How good was Lando in the final bit of the season? How bad was Oscar? And how good were they for the first 2/3 of the year? So I think all that combined, from a constructor point of view, in terms of the entire team as a whole, I don't think anybody came even remotely close. Mercedes had it, there's the argument over was Kimi too soon. Red Bull, they only have one driver and they treat the other driver like absolute fucking shit. Williams, one of their drivers, had a rubbish start to the year. You can go through all of them and pick out faults. Absolutely all of them had faults. The fact of the matter is, McLaren blew them all completely out of the water.
Lexi wings, ride height adjustments, tire water.
It was the tire water that won them the championship. The tire water won them the championship. It's a genius invention.
Get that tin hat off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. that Ferrari hat's made out of a red tin foil, is it?
The only thing I'll say is that the ride height one is interesting. I would have liked to have seen another couple of races where ride height was potentially a factor. Obviously the flexi wing didn't do too much for anything, but
despite Christian Horner's claims that it was going to make them as slow as a tractor, that didn't
no,
come out
but
well,
then
did
again,
it?
I mean, after the flexi wing change and all that, like that is when kind of Red Bull do start to come back into it a couple of races later. So I don't know. Over the whole, I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you in terms of how those tracks go versus the flexi wing straight after. But yeah, interesting.
Well, Coops, I'll give the final word on McLaren to you then. Can we expect a 3 in a row next year, or is the engine formula gonna hurt them a little bit being a customer again at the start of a new regs?
No, because the rumor is the Mercedes engine is the best one to have. So I think the biggest drop off we're going to see is probably Red Bull because they're going forward in their own one, and apparently there's issues around that. That was the rumor as part of the reason why Christian Horner ended up getting dismissed. Was he was the main man in that area? They realised they've messed it up, so they are potentially looking at losing their front man by the end of next year or halfway through the year because there's performance clauses in Max Verstappen's contract, and if he's not in, I think the rumor is second or something by the summer break next year, he's able to get out of his contract. So, no, Mercedes is what's going to help McLaren. McLaren should use this as a building block, but then we said that about Ferrari last year, and they just went down the way. So, talking about next year is like, trying to grab a jellyfish with boxing gloves. It's never going to succeed. So yeah, more power to them. They made it frustrating at a couple of points. I got quite angry with them, and actually halfway through the championship, I just didn't really feel it. I don't know what it was about it. It was a bit weird. It was just I was a bit off by it. I don't know if it was their attitude, like they need to pick a driver, they need to just deal with it, or what it was, but they got the job done, and we all remember a few years ago when they had two sponsors and they were the Formula One mandated sponsors. We know Alonso going on about GP2 engine when they had the tokens and they got, was it 250 odd place penalties, and we've been there, we've seen that, so I'm going to wallow in my hypocrisy. I'm not wallow, I'm going to swim in it, I'm going to enjoy it, and yeah, there was a couple of tears in the eyes when Lando finally done it. Quietened Morgan off because he's a Red Bull fan. So we're going to enjoy it for the winter, and then in Australia we're going to come back to reality when they qualify 12th and 13th the first race, and wonder what's going wrong. We'll be ahead of Ferrari because they'll be Q1 or Q1.
Well, Lewis Hamilton will be out in Q1 anyway.
Aye.
On that cheery note, that'll do it for this one. That is our constructors rankings based on the whole team. Do you agree with us? Did we get that phenomenally wrong? Do you think Alpine are the best team in Formula One? And if so, when is your brain surgery scheduled? Because come on, we will be back in a couple of days with our driver rankings. We are going from 21st to first. Again, the whole team has voted. The whole team is ranked. We've gone 21st to first. Can you guess who we have number one? I bet you can't. We'll be back with that in a couple of days. Thank you very much to my panel for joining me. We'll be back soon. Good night. Bye now.